I was just yelling to myself, really, not at Tom Chiasano, but I said, Tom, it's over 100 degrees in the studio. What do I do? What would you do? And he left.
Bounced right off.
I'm going outside. It's too hot in here.
He didn't have anything to say?
I'll tell you who does have something to say.
Who?
Richard Johnson from Page 6.
Oh, he wants to answer Alec Baldwin, huh?
Richard Johnson, the editor of Page 6. Would you call yourself the editor, Richard?
Yes, I would.
Yes. And how are you?
Good. I am ready to rebut everything that Alec Baldwin said.
Well,
Good.
all he said was that your writing was bad, really.
Well, yeah, but you see, that shows you something, because he used to just deny everything that we said. He said that we were inaccurate, that we were not telling the truth, that it was all lies. Now he just says that I'm a bad writer. So
Let me ask you something. If a guy criticizes you, do you then go out and target him?
Well, what Alec Baldwin did, and I don't know if you remember this, but about a year ago, he went on Rosie O'Donnell. He was upset over the first story we had in Page 6 about this cancer charity.
Mm-hmm.
And he went on Rosie O'Donnell, and he said that the New York Post was the worst excuse for journalism in the entire world. And just went on in, that kind of vein.
All right, so there's no love between...
He got the crowd all fired up. They were all cheering like mad.
Meanwhile, they all read it.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So, in other words, and I guarantee Alec reads it and Rosie O'Donnell reads it as well.
That's how he knows the writing is bad.
Alec's not a bad guy, but he does go off at the mouth sometimes.
Okay, would you do me a favor and investigate your own newspaper and find out why they insist on always running a bad picture of me? They have nice pictures of me. They always, you know what I'm talking about, too. They show that picture right up my nostrils, like where I'm looking up,
right,
and you can't see my face. Have you ever asked anyone why they do that?
Well, you know what you should do is send over your own photo.
No, I have. Listen, there is somebody up there.
Plenty of photos.
I'm being serious, Richard.
I actually, one time, James Truman, who works over at Condé Nast, they kept on using the same picture that made him look like an axe murderer.
Right.
And I actually went back into the library, got the photograph, and tore it up into bits and sent it to him to show him that we weren't going to use it again.
No, but somebody over there has it in for me. I know they do. I'm talking about a photo editor or somebody.
I don't think that's true. I think sometimes they pick a photo that
you can't even see my face, though. You can't. I mean, literally cannot see my face.
I know that on Page 6 we make an extra effort to get the best looking.
Well, thank you. But anyway, all right. So, what do you want to say? Alec Baldwin came on here today
to defend
himself. He says that his mother's charity.
Well, he admitted that they were in the first couple of years they had big startup costs, because basically all we were, we came out with a story a year ago raising some issues with this charity, and now basically a year goes by and Forbes magazine listed it as one of the 5 worst in terms of efficiency, in terms of getting money to charitable research. What happens is they spend all the money on overhead and none of it really goes to charity.
Well,
you say none.
Yeah, you have to.
That's a little bit.
You hate to knock a guy or a family that's trying to raise money for breast cancer research. But you're saying that more of the money... Oh, wait, Alec's on the phone. Yeah.
Oh, you got it.
Alec's
on the phone.
Here's that. That will get this settled. Alec, perfect. You got Richard Johnson on the phone. You guys take it up with each other.
Alec.
Richard Johnson.
How you doing?
Now, Richard Johnson, I know you've got a job to do. It's a dirty job.
Somebody's got to do it.
Ugly. It's a filthy, ugly, nasty job. And you're very good at it, by the way. But what have you got against breast cancer research, Richard Johnson?
Nothing.
Well, that's...
If you have to... I want to just... If I send you the facts, the interpretive facts of that Forbes magazine article, would you print those facts?
I don't understand why you're asking me to print. It's already in print. It's in Forbes. Anybody who wants to read it can go ahead.
Well, no. But what I'm saying is the more proper interpretation of what Forbes has in that, in which they say that cash that's carried over, that's distributable cash, they count it as overhead, which is not really very fair,
But, Alec, all I'm saying is that Forbes has listed this charity as one of the 5 worst, along with Ned Beatty, Magic Johnson, Evander Holyfield, and
I'm well aware of what they say. But what I'm saying is...
So what you're saying is that your problem is with Forbes, that they've screwed up somehow.
Right, well, but plus also my problem is with your your column is the only thing I find questionable.
But Alec, you have to admit, you can see why I'm so proud, because we had this a year ago, and now Forbes, a national magazine with huge resources, has done all this research, and they agree with it.
Well, I think that the truth is that the interpretation of Forbes' material and their facts is what really, really counts here.
Alec, what you're trying to say is that there is a lot of cash in the organization that hasn't been distributed yet.
If you don't distribute the cash as grants, they count it as overhead, and that's not fair.
You plan on distributing that money.
They just count how much money did you give out that year, and whatever you subtract that from the total you raised, and the rest is overhead. That's not fair.
Right, you're saying you're keeping some of the money on hold in order to keep the organization...
Well, they say they're going to distribute it later.
Right. So, Richard, what do you think of that?
Well, I hope that in future years that they'll have a better performance, and I have nothing against charity. I think what this whole story in Forbes was pointing out, though, is that it's a little silly that every single celebrity has to have their own foundation. I mean, Sharon Stone does a lot of great work for AIDS. She does work with AMFAR. She didn't have to go out and start the Sharon Stone Foundation.
So what do you think it is, vanity?
Well, I think there is something to that.
Alec, is there vanity involved here?
Well, what makes you presume that they're the ones, that the people who have the charity are the ones out of vanity that insisted the charity be formed in their name? The people from Stony Brook University came to my mother as a breast cancer survivor and asked that she form this charity.
See there, Richard?
My mother didn't go to Stony Brook University. I mean, again...
So you didn't, Alec, you didn't say...
what he does best, which is making presumptions about people and their motivations. Well, the university approached her and asked her to do that.
So, Alec, you didn't set this up as a company so your mom could have a job.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's got other things she could do with her time.
Right, she's busy. In other words, she's doing something good. What about that, Richard?
But let me just point out, by the way, the most important thing. The reason this is all the foundation, the primary reason, other than Stony Brook coming to her, was the reason that the foundation is in existence is my mother is a survivor of breast cancer.
Right.
I mean, Richard, even you can understand that, can't you? So my mother is a survivor of breast cancer who had, radical surgery and nearly died from the disease. So that really is her ultimate motivation for doing what she's doing.
Well, I think it's terrific, and I hope that in the future...
people I know you come in contact with on a excruciatingly regular basis, not everybody is after public relations and out there, and motivated by vanity. So, I know that's how you see it. I know you think every actor and every famous person is just a shameless self-promoter and a whore who's out to...
Yeah, wait a minute. Don't put words in my mouth.
Well, Richard, everybody knows that about you, and everybody knows that about Page 6. Your job is to bring people down. Your job is to destroy. You are a destroyer, and the magazine is the article is a destroyer.
No more so than Howard Stern.
Or you don't celebrate anything, or you don't cast any light on anything. You just pass on a lot of unsubstantiated crap about people.
Richard, why you got to bash me?
Yeah, don't drag us into it.
Don't drag my name into it. I'm just a comedian.
I'm saying that's what Page 6 is. Page 6 is, a hatchet job.
Why not just say that we're evil, that we're a force of Satan?
Murdoch, who's the king of the hatchet job. He's the hatchet job. He's the
Alec, are we just going to start doing name-calling here?
Well, let me ask you.
No, let it fly, Richard. Go for it, man.
Well, I mean, basically, you're just saying that we are evil, we're a force for Satan, and that Page 6 bad, Alec Baldwin good.
No, Richard, the one thing I will say is your article is very badly written. You are a very bad writer. That's the biggest problem I have. Other people who do what you do, they're just so much better at it and more clever than you.
Am I supposed to start bringing up the bad movies that you've made?
The bad movies I've made were not my fault. No one's ever blamed me for the movies I did that didn't work well, Richard.
All right.
Difference. You're completely in control of the column you write, and I'm just wondering what's the excuse, Richard, for the really bad writing that happens in your magazine, in your newspaper?
Is there a particular phrase that you didn't like?
I think everything you write and everything you stand for is reprehensible to me. But I understand that you're filling a market. You know what I mean? You got a job, you got to make a living. This is how you make your living, bringing people down and attacking people in an unsubstantiated way.
But, Alec, you could make the argument on Richard's behalf that perhaps by pointing out...
There is no argument that can be made on Richard's behalf.
I'm indefensible.
What about the fact that, let's say there are charities...
That's the most accurate statement you've ever made, Richard, in your entire life.
But, Alec, let's say...
You are indefensible.
Alec, let's say there are charities out there that aren't giving money... or using the charity improperly, not yours, but let's say...
The most important thing is how much is the charity spending in administrative costs to raise...
So I think that's an important thing.
Do you have lavish offices? Do you have big offices and big staffs and people get big salaries? That is not the case with my mother's foundation. That is not the case.
So in other words, what you're saying is...
The money that was not distributed was not kept in order for people to have cars and apartments and expense accounts. The money is kept in escrow to be distributed at another date.
And I think the other thing that Alec is saying is that there were 5 charities listed. They focused on him and his family.
So are you saying that...
And the other thing is Newman's charity gets a very glowing report, and deservedly so. They've been at this a lot longer. My mother's foundation is a young foundation. They had associations with people on Long Island in the last couple of years, and co-sponsorships with local groups, some of which didn't produce the events in the best possible way. Let's say someone comes to you and says, we'll host a golf tournament, and we'll raise money, and we'll give you the money for charity. Rather than they do the whole event, they raise the money, they pay the overhead and write you a clean check for that amount. They make you a partner. Then whatever money is in the expense column becomes, on your taxes, becomes overhead for you.
Mm-hmm. So
and some of the people we co-sponsored with, they were very irresponsible.
Right. So it's not an easy...
High costs for a gala. They had high costs for a golf tournament. Mm-hmm. Hey, you learn as you go.
So it's not an easy...
those people anymore.
But Alec, all I'm saying, I'm not questioning your motives. I'm not questioning your mother's motives. All I'm saying is that you have made a list of 5 charities along with Denise Simpson.
Right. I'm well aware of what's in Forbes magazine. What I'm saying is that, as in anything, Richard, which you more than anyone should know about interpreting what's in the media, as in anything, the article and the facts in Forbes magazine need to be interpreted. And what Forbes did was a bit irresponsible as far as I'm concerned. They only talked about a percentage of distributed cash and wrote off every other dime as administrative costs.
So Alec, you feel that Richard's column...
Let's put it this way.
You feel
Forbes
that...
magazine decided to do this the easiest possible way and in the most unexamined way they could.
You feel that Richard's column kind of twisted the knife in your back? Is that what your problem is?
I feel that Richard's column is... The only qualification to be in Richard's column is that it's a fact that disparages or denigrates someone.
Well,
he doesn't bother to check into it. He doesn't bother to see if Forbes magazine says that these are the worst charities, he doesn't call you for a comment. He doesn't want to know your interpretation of that. If Forbes magazine says the charity is a lousy charity, Richard Johnson is giggling all the way to the typewriter.
Wait a minute, Alec. We talked to Michael Maffetoni, who is the president of the Baldwin Foundation.
But you didn't print anything that he said.
Well, we have a quote right here, where he tries to explain how he suddenly made $123,000 in expenses disappear. And his explanation, which makes no sense, is he said it's the difference between what is tax deductible and what is not.
Right. Well,
and then we also talked to John Pace.
Why does that not make any sense?
We also talked to John Pace, who used to be on the board until he was dumped around Christmas. So we talked to 2 different people connected with the foundation.
No, why do you bring up John Pace, and why do you talk about John Pace being dumped, quote unquote? Is John Pace a personal friend of yours, Richard?
No, I don't even know him.
Oh, you don't even know him? Really?
It's true.
Oh, I think that's odd. Because you seem to take any facts that people present to you that disparage the foundation. It's as if these people are your friends. John Pace was yet another person on the board who we were afraid we would run into a Jerry Barish type situation with, in which they would politicize the fund. John Pace is a Republican, a 516 Republican, a Hope to Die Republican, and a breast cancer fundraiser second. And Pace would have done for this foundation exactly what Barish would have done for 1 and 9, which was to politicize the foundation. We didn't want to put ourselves in that position.
Well, let me tell you, this is...
Pace isn't on the board anymore for a very, very important and very, very significant reason.
Richard, would you ever write a nice... Richard, would you ever write a nice...
Pace knows that.
Would you ever write a nice...
Pace is well aware of why he's off the board.
It's hard to get a word in edgewise.
No,
well, Richard didn't blow up the Ned Beatty Foundation and make a headline out of it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Go, Robin, go.
Well, okay.
Well, Ned Beatty didn't go on Rosie O'Donnell and trash the New York Post.
Oh, so you have a vendetta.
Yeah, but the New York Post, that's a New York tradition. The New York Post is a piece of garbage. The only thing you can... The editorial board of the New York Post needs to be flushed into the river.
So Howard, how do you think I should react
The
to
New
this?
York Post is absolutely, it's journalistic tripe. It's menudo.
Well, I'll tell you, I guess you two are locked. So in other words, no one can criticize the New York
But
Post.
Richard Johnson, I want you to know, I pray for you every night. As a Christian, I pray for you every night, Richard Johnson.
Now, Alec, you're not only a politician, but a priest.
And that your soul is redeemed, Richard Johnson, because I know you're a father.
God.
I know you have children. I know you want your children to love you and respect you. And one day you're going to see the shimmering light, Richard Johnson.
Well, I think
and
the
you're
press...
gonna quit that vile, horrible rag sheet you work for.
I'm getting very scared. If I have Alec Baldwin praying for my soul, now I'm scared.
Well, Richard, I guess...
I'm praying for your soul, Richard, every night.
Well, Alec, you could certainly make the argument that the tabloid press is good if they uncover charities that don't perform well.
But he's not one of them, is what
And
he's
Richard,
saying.
you can make Alec's argument also that you target him because he's not a fan of the New York Post, their politics, or the editorial board.
But it's interesting that the Post, in the end of Richard Johnson's article, he says that the very last button to the article is, he writes, and I'm going to use the foundation for my political career. And it's like, I've never said I'm going to run for political office, never. The person who keeps that alive more than anyone is Richard Johnson. I mean, if I get elected to the Senate, I'm going to have to appoint Richard Johnson Minister of Disinformation or some job that he's appropriately suited for.
I will not take that job. I wouldn't take that job. If
Will we
it was the right
ever
job.
see you two get together and
You know you want to come work for me, Richard Johnson.
You know, actually, I saw Alec at the Artists and Writers softball game.
what happened when the two of you met face to face?
It was very cordial.
It was very cordial. Richard Johnson, in person, Richard Johnson is nowhere near the vitriol-dripping vampire that he seems in his article.
Thank you. Oh, my God. You're giving me too much credit.
But God bless you, Richard Johnson. Someone's got to take out the garbage, Richard. I'm glad it's you. God bless you, my friend.
Alec,
God bless all
I
the
think
rest
that
of those
Alec
other,
just said that he was
God bless all the
garbage.
rest of those other demons over at the New York Post. God bless you all, and thank you.
Thank you, Alec. There he is, Alec Baldwin, everybody. And Richard, thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
What a thanks. Hope to see you soon.
I'm wounded, but still standing.
I can't wait to see the article on Alec Baldwin tomorrow.
Oh, you just wait. You just wait.
All right, thanks, Richard.
Thanks, man.
All right, there you go. The Richard Johnson and Alec Baldwin show coming to a theater soon.